A transformation had taken place within the world. It wasn't an ordinary occurrence like shifts in tectonic plates or volcanic eruptions. Monsters inexplicably began to manifest across the globe, propelling the world to the brink of annihilation. The entity enabling their appearance, the enigmatic realm that bestowed these creatures with power and dominion, is referred to as the Devil's Tower, or God's Tower. The rationale behind this nomenclature is due to the deities that inhabit these towers who conveyed a message to all humans urging them to ascend the tower. Inside awaits everything they could ever desire: power, wealth, and prestige. Ascend the tower and we shall gratify your wishes. Overcome the trials we've set before you. A colossal tower spanning 999 floors. The entities governing this domain are gods and demons. Governments worldwide endeavored to prevent people from approaching the tower, yet no one could impede individuals from challenging it in accordance with the deity's decree. Those who obstructed others from facing the tower faced retribution. It has been 5 years since billions began taking notice of the tower. A man with alabaster hair and violet eyes, adorned with a self-assured grin, eagerly readies himself to embark on humanity's inaugural endeavor to conquer the 600th floor. He stands resolute before countless entities amidst a grand explosion. The man dauntlessly questions how the Nine-Star dared to halt him. Amongst the myriad challengers, 9 individuals stood above the rest, wielding magic and divine energy they acquired within the tower. Their might was unrivaled. The star known as the Dark Star or the Death Star wasn't a master of weaponry nor a superhuman, yet he was the one who surpassed the Nine-Star, attaining the title of the mightiest. His name is Cha Jin-huk, the harbinger of death, the embodiment of death, the preeminent necromancer. As our main character Jin-huk calls forth his skeletal soldiers, he informs the Nine-Star that he had grown weary of peace and humanity, as all he yearns for is strength. He asserts that he shall employ them as summoned beasts to achieve greatness. A white-haired man clutching a tome asserts, "We of the Nine-Star have no recourse but to vanquish the traitor Cha Jin-huk." Although Cha Jin-huk defected and assaulted the Nine-Star after becoming consumed by power, he was incapable of single-handedly overcoming the entire group. Cha Jin-huk, the apostate who exchanged loyalty for might. However, this narrative is merely the one the world knows. The reality is that Cha Jin-huk didn't betray humanity. In truth, he was betrayed by 8 of the Nine-Star. This verity remains concealed from the world. A decade having transpired since then, a man awakens in an apartment. His fury manifests as he vocalizes his intent to confront the Nine-Star and denounces them as scoundrels. He claims that his covert ability, soul transmission, had indeed functioned at the precipice of death. This spell permits him to transfer his soul into a suitable vessel. Jin-huk observes that it seems to have located a body resembling his own, and he's still situated in South Korea. Enraged by the memory of how he could have conquered the 600th floor unaided, only for the Nine-Star to ostensibly support him and then betray him, Jin-huk flashes back to a moment when he inquired why they had turned against him. A paladin named Cain and a saint named Kamen defiantly faced him. Cain vowed that though Jin-huk might be dubbed a one-man army, he paled in comparison to them individually. Jin-huk responded that his intention was merely to assist, but Cain rebuffed him, asserting it wasn't a personal matter. They harbored no ill sentiment towards him. Cain, with a disdainful expression, menacingly suggested that Jin-huk was merely pulling weeds. Jin-huk inquired about Choi Gang-hun, wondering if he was aligned with them. Gang-hun was the combat star among the Nine-Star and Jin-huk's friend, who opted out of the 600th floor challenge. Jin-huk speculated whether they concealed the truth from Gang-hun, fearing he'd side with him. As his vision dimmed due to substantial blood loss, Jin-huk ruminated that it was his demise. He'd sacrifice himself for them all. However, he cautioned them against presuming this would signify the end, as he vowed to return stronger for vengeance. In the present, Jin-huk's fury endures, and he resolves that he won't merely subject them to servitude as his summoned beasts. He's determined to obstruct any potential for their rebirth. Suddenly, his phone rings, and Jin-huk experiences a hint of delight, having not utilized one in some time. His expression swiftly morphs into one of shock and terror as he realizes it's the year 2023, signifying 10 years have elapsed. For him, it felt like a fleeting instant. He ponders whether he can wield magic in this body. Spotting a fly, he decides to eliminate it, endeavoring to resurrect it as an undead but fumbling in his attempts. Despite multiple efforts, he remains unsuccessful. His countenance reflects disappointment as he discerns not a trace of mana within this form. He contemplates whether this signifies he must ascend the tower devoid of any usable skills. Swiftly consulting his phone, curious whether they've reached the tower's apex in the past decade, he discovers they've only scaled 200 floors. He perceives this as an opportunity. While they leisurely progress, he intends to catch up and exact his revenge. External training proves futile, necessitating his immediate departure. Though his physique may resemble that of a novice, he possesses the wisdom of the Death Star Cha Jin-huk. He's determined to leverage this knowledge to swiftly amass strength. Outside the Soul Tower entrance, a throng gathers, some aspiring to ascend and amass riches, while others dissuade them by predicting first-floor fatalities. This is the place where aspirations and narratives converge. The tower. He's finally returned. He vows in the name of Cha Jin-huk, resolute in making his presence known. As the tower's entrance swings open, a rush of entrants ensues. In the midst of this, our MC strides forward confidently, announcing the commencement of of his retribution. Upon entering the tower, Jin-Huk finds himself teleported to the tutorial stage. Reflecting on the time that has passed, he realizes it's been 15 years since his last visit. He notes that this place offers a level of difficulty unmatched anywhere else, an arduous path laden with traps that require days to traverse. Among 10 floors, this one is often considered the most formidable. A system materializes, presenting him with a challenge: navigate through traps to reach the destination. Damage sustained can be healed either upon reaching the destination or returning to the starting point. Curious about his new body's attributes, Jin-Huk opens his status window, only to be met with disappointment due to the dismal stats. Observing that he now possesses gluttony and mana-related stats, he ponders whether traits and physical talents differ among souls. Grinning confidently, he resolves to maximize his gains from the tutorial. With determination, he races into the treacherous path ahead. However, as he leaves the starting point, a series of magical arrow traps activate. While he manages to evade some, multiple arrows appear behind him, and despite dodging several, he ends up getting hit multiple times. Despite the pain, Jin-Huk perseveres, vowing to endure and continue forward. Returning to the starting point, all damage reverts. While it's excruciating, Jin-Huk decides to gauge his endurance, but he understands he can't recklessly charge ahead. Upon touching his spilled blood, he discusses the two traits that made him Earth's strongest climber. The first is gluttony, enabling him to assimilate non-living objects and make them his own. As he absorbs the blood, he explains that the lifeless blood's experiences become his own. With this, he gains a reward of +1 stat point on his tolerance exp. Content with the increased tolerance, he's confident he can manage basic status anomalies even without dealing with equipment settings. He anticipates a week to complete the tutorial and become a skilled climber, but he persists in enduring the arrow barrage. Utilizing this technique, he plans to raise his stats through gluttony until his tolerance exp maxes out. A month later, he stands next to the final portal, surrounded by arrows. The system congratulates him for successfully finishing the tutorial, prompting a sigh of relief from Jin-Huk. He acknowledges the prolonged duration due to frequent back-and-forth traversal. Suddenly, another system emerges, informing him that both gods and demons are intrigued by his approach. Incensed, Jin-Huk curses them as sadistic individuals. He elaborates that they monitor players to find someone akin to them. Recognizing that none of them reveal their true names, Jin-Huk suspects they employ tricks to gain disciples. The system relays that a demon appears to be smiling, and as the system shifts from blue to red, a message from Peak of All Evil greets Jin-Huk. Asking how he's been, Jin-Huk identifies the demon as Baal, calling him a persistent individual. He recounts that in his previous life, Baal relentlessly pursued him to become his disciple, and it was Baal who enabled him to obtain soul transmission. With both gods and demons interested in him, Jin-Huk vents his anger at Baal for attracting their attention. As numerous entities express curiosity, Jin-Huk demands they quiet down, labeling them all as vexing. He asserts that if they want to know whom he chooses, they should clandestinely observe and remain silent. He makes it clear that Baal isn't a candidate and instructs him to cease his aspirations. Jin-Huk then examines his tutorial stage rewards, noting the acquisition of blood loss tolerance, pain tolerance, unconsciousness tolerance, penetration tolerance, and the ability to endure. His stats have also experienced a significant boost. Jin-Huki gleefully explains that it's challenging to acquire mana at this stage, but his mana has increased due to his mana-type nature. The system reveals that due to his growth, a new trait, All-Rounder, has been unlocked. Perplexed, Jin-Huk wonders how he's receiving another trait when he already possesses gluttony. He concludes that the body's previous owner must have possessed this trait. The system elucidates that All-Rounder enables proficiency in various areas, providing adjustments during training and combat. This excites Jin-Huk immensely, as it may facilitate his quest for the title of All-Master. Just as he revels in the potential, Jin-Huk's curiosity about his status window jolts him into shock. Jin-Huk's emotions shift, and he firmly tells Baal to cease his interference and leave him alone. He instructs Baal to proceed to the next floor and follow him if desired. As Jin-Huk enters the portal to the next room, he's transported to the room of choice and training. The system extends a welcome, prompting him to select a weapon and class that best suits him. Once his choice is made, he's to destroy the floor beneath him, which will transport him to the tower's first floor. Jin-Huk explains that in his previous life, after discovering he was a mana type, he promptly chose to become a mage. Generating a practice target, he employs his new trait, All-Rounder, to gauge its effectiveness. As targets appear, Jin-Huk expertly employs a bow, hitting the targets with precision. He asks the system to generate more targets, this time with the ability to attack him. The system cautions him about the danger since he hasn't selected a class yet. With a confident smile, Jin-Huk dismisses the warning, stating he doesn't mind. As the targets assail him, he adeptly uses the bow and sword to eliminate them. Standing assertively with dual weapons, he urges the system to summon more targets. The difficulty escalates, producing larger targets. Without hesitation, Jin-Huk leaps onto a giant target, impaling it with a spear. Armed with 2 knives, he hurls them at targets behind him. Ranged targets emerge, but Jin-Huk takes cover behind the giant target, avoiding their shots. The system alerts him that these are the most hazardous targets for this floor. Undaunted, Jin-Huk dashes towards the staff and uses magical arrows to destroy the drone prone targets. Impressed with the prowess of the all-rounder trait, he attests to feeling as though he's been wielding these weapons for years. The system announces that he's cleared a new achievement, the All-Master achievement, attained by utilizing at least one weapon from each category in the room of choice and training. He's rewarded with All-Master unlocked attack stat plus 5,000. The system inquires whether he'd like to select All-Master as his class, but cautions that this choice can't be made once he exits the room of choice and training. Jin-Huk contemplates his decision, realizing that even though the All-Master class is enticing, he can't abandon his primary advantage. Consequently, he decides to ask the system to designate All-Master as his subclass. Shock overtakes him as the system informs him it's impossible. He queries the system about the reason, and it responds that subclass slots can only be unlocked after the 100th floor. He regrets forgetting about this aspect during the early stages of the game. Although it might be wasteful, he considers utilizing his accomplishment points to unlock the subclass slot. He poses the question to the system, inquiring if he can use his accomplishment points for this purpose. The system expresses surprise at how a novice is aware of such a mechanism. It elucidates that accomplishment points are a currency earned through completing tasks, enabling users to make changes to the system. Jin-Huk asserts that there's no need to question how he's privy to this knowledge. Speculating if he could utilize 5,000 points to unlock the subclass slot, he learns it's feasible, but he currently possesses only 5,000 points, while 5,500 are required. Annoyed, he states he'll employ Baal. Addressing the system, he calls out to the peak of all evil, Baal, revealing his identity in the previous conversation they had. He informs the system that there's an accomplishment for initiating dialogue with the gods for the first time. This act awards him 200 accomplishment points. The peak of all evil asks if he has done well, but Jin-Huk pleads with Baal to never do something similar again. The system queries whether he'd like to use his accomplishment points to select All-Master as his subclass. Jin-Huk agrees, and the system extends congratulations, bestowing him with the All-Master subclass. The system informs him that destroying the room of choice and training floor will transport him to the tower's first floor. With excitement, Jin-Huk concentrates energy in his staff, ready to commence his quest for revenge. He destroys the floor beneath him, initiating his journey. Meanwhile, on the first floor known as Coral Forest, two climbers struggle to progress, questioning how they can conquer the tower if the initial floor poses such difficulty. A creature called a cobalt charges towards one of the climbers. Suddenly, a rift in the sky opens, and Jin-Huk emerges, identifying the cobalt as his first prey. He lands on its head, swiftly slaying it. The witnessing cobalt trembles in fear, as Jin-Huk eyes the climbers menacingly, sticking out his tongue and suggesting he wonders what he'll gain by devouring them all. One of the adventurers is astounded by Jin-Huk's remarkable feat in single-handedly vanquishing a cobalt. Furthermore, the observer notices Jin-Huk's mastery in the mage class. A climber approaches Jin-Huk and suggests joining forces. Jin-Huk responds with a menacing tone, instructing them to depart, which takes the climbers by surprise. Continuing his stance, Jin-Huk warns them that any contact with the kobolds will lead to fatal consequences. Trembling in fear, the two climbers hastily flee for their lives. Subsequently, as two kobolds advance to attack Jin-Huk, he employs his staff skillfully, delivering a lethal blow to one of them. With a menacing glare, he challenges the remaining kobold, questioning its intentions. The kobold, deciding to escape, is met with Jin-Huk's relentless pursuit. A magical arrow unleashed by Jin-Huk puts an end to the kobold's flight, extinguishing its life. The system materializes, extending a welcoming greeting to Jin-Huk on the first floor. However, Jin-Huk expresses his disappointment, informing the system that he is presently occupied with looting. The system then presents him with a quest involving the extermination of 10 kobolds, a task that Jin-Huk finds undemanding. Jin-Huk elucidates that by defeating a particular type of monster repeatedly, one attains the prestigious title of a slayer. He reveals that his past self had diligently pursued these slayer achievements. Addressing his hunger, Jin-Huk employs gluttony, siphoning the essence of life from the kobold. This grants him access to the creature's memories and strengths, while also enabling him to comprehend the language of the kobold. Upon scrutinizing his statistics, Jin-Huk is impressed by their advancement, equating them to those of a climber on the 10th floor. Delving into the memories of the kobold, he discovers the existence of the Cobalt Lord. Filled with excitement, Jin-Huk perceives the timing of this revelation as serendipitous. He explains that a Lord monster heralds an impending wave of monsters. Jin-Huk realizes he can achieve his Slayer goal while simultaneously farming by defeating this Lord. Recognizing the necessity of an army to face the wave, he reanimates the fallen kobolds, transforming them into skeleton soldiers. The system commends his successful class change to a Necromancer, acknowledging his Alem status and past life memories that make class changing effortless. Yet Jin-Huk remains unsatisfied, knowing there is a concealed class he must attain on the first floor. Observing the trembling kobolds, a skeleton informs Jin-Huk of their fear upon witnessing their king's transformation. Jin-Huk orders the skeletons to eliminate any kobold they encounter. Carrying a blue stone and accompanied by his skeletal battalion, he arrives at a secluded location he sought, a small house nestled within the forest. Upon entering, he expresses gratitude for its undisturbed state, asking the soldiers to wait outside. Jin-Huk ventures deeper into the house, uncovering a hidden staircase beneath the floor. As he descends, he elucidates the presence of a significant class on the first floor, a Necromancer, a high-ranking mage utilizing souls known as a Spirit Master. The first Spirit Master concealed within this place is Vulcan, a Necromancer indicated by the class-changing coffin. Upon opening the coffin, a skeletal figure emerges, suspended in the air. The skeleton inquires of Jin-Huk if he is his descendant. Vulcan is taken aback by Jin-Huk's nonchalant demeanor and inquires if Jin-Huk isn't surprised to see him considering Vulcan's attempt to appear spectacular. Jin-Huk retorts that a Necromancer shouldn't be astonished by the sight of a skeleton. He clarifies that he arrived here after perusing Vulcan's journal and is past the point of surprise. This journal, a concealed item titled Journal of Spirit Master Vulcan, was not read in this lifetime but during the period when he lost his worth upon changing his class to a mage. He explains he came back to the first floor after discovering the journal and upon becoming a Spirit Master, struggled unsuccessfully to summon Vulcan. Vulcan expresses his fondness for Jin-Huk, noting his superiority compared to a discourteous individual from a decade earlier. Irritated by Vulcan's criticism of his past life, Jin-Huk contemplates whether he should eliminate him. However, he decides to overlook it and focuses on completing his class change. Jin-Huk informs Vulcan of his desire to change his class swiftly. Vulcan apologizes and explains that Jin-Huk must first reach the 10th floor, as Spirit Master is a higher-ranking class than even Necromancer. He reveals that Jin-Huk needs to undergo a second class change in the class-changing tower on the 10th floor before he can proceed. Jin-Huk interjects, revealing his status as a Necromancer through his stats. Vulcan is astounded by Jin-Huk's self-driven class change without ascending to the 10th floor. He acknowledges Jin-Huk's prominence and skill, comparing him favorably to the punk from Jin-Huk's past life. Annoyed, Jin-Huk urges Vulcan to facilitate his class change. Vulcan chuckles and generates a surge of energy around them. Jin-Huk then recounts the backstory of Vulcan, a climber of immense power who sought to surpass his abilities. Vulcan, dissatisfied with conventional summons, aspired to summon a soul, leading him to create the Spirit Master class. Fortunately, his physical body and the Spirit Master class neared extinction, leading Vulcan to employ necromancy on himself, with the hope that his descendant would restore his honor. Thus, Vulcan transformed into a half-NPC figure, serving as a guide for future climbers. Vulcan, impressed by Jin-Huk's aura, provides instructions on using the Soul Crucible to capture souls and consequently summon entities. Jin-Huk contemplates capturing Vulcan with the Soul Crucible, his preparations already complete. Vulcan commends Jin-Huk as his descendant and urges him to ascend the tower and spread his name. With a sly smile, Jin-Huk points to Vulcan, telling him to undertake this task personally. Confused and disappointed, Vulcan questions Jin-Huk's assertion. In an outburst, Vulcan refers to him as a bastard and inquires about the promise written in the journal. Standing resolutely, Jin-Huk asserts that shoving responsibilities onto others is a negative trait. He promises to resolve the matter for free, unsettling Vulcan. In a menacing manner, Jin-Huk activates Soul Collection, causing Vulcan's soul to be drawn from his skeletal form. Vulcan struggles and defiantly gestures, refusing to be captured. Jin-Huk's satisfaction grows as a magic barrier encloses Vulcan, creating a personal prison. Jin-Huk asks if Vulcan is comfortable and explains that this magic wall is a basic spell, a customized prison for Vulcan. As Vulcan protests, Jin-Huk interrupts, revealing that he had previously scattered cobalt mana stones on his journey here. He casts magic to activate them just as he has done now. While Vulcan can easily break the low-level magic, he questions whether he can do so before Jin-Huk captures him. Vulcan ponders who this man is trapped in his grasp, marveling at the skill and tactics of a first-floor climber. Removing his hood, Jin-Huk discloses his identity and asserts that although he failed in his past life, he can now capture Vulcan with confidence. Jin-Huk declares himself the second Spirit Master, perhaps even the third. Vulcan comprehends the dire situation, recognizing Jin-Huk and shouting his name. Without hesitation, Jin-Huk activates his skill soul collection, absorbing Vulcan's soul thoroughly. Left with an empty skeleton, Jin-Huk assures Vulcan that everything he yearned for will come to fruition now that he is with him. Returning to the exterior of the house, Jin-Huk gazes upon his skeletal warriors and declares his newfound redundancy for such companions. He proceeds to shatter the skeletal entities, awakening the ethereal essences of the kobolds he had vanquished. Despite a mild sense of disappointment stemming from their inability to communicate, his attention abruptly shifts to Vulcan, who now stands in his human guise. Incredulously, Vulcan questions Jin-Huk's audacity in utilizing him as a spirit soldier. With an insidious grin, Jin-Huk remarks that this marks his first encounter with Vulcan in this form, further noting Vulcan's probable handsomeness during his youth. Consumed by fury at Jin-Huk's disrespect, Vulcan bellows vehemently, vowing not to let such affronts pass unchallenged. After all, he is the original Spirit Master. However, Vulcan's ire quickly subsides as an enigmatic force constricts his throat, compelling him to bow before Jin-Huk. In a commanding tone, Jin-Huk cautions Vulcan against excessive resistance, elucidating that his very existence is sustained by Jin-Huk. Severing this connection would precipitate Vulcan's immediate dissolution. With his head still bowed, Vulcan retorts, questioning Jin-Huk's presumption that he will be so easily dominated. Yet Jin-Huk's voice drips with menace as he reminds Vulcan of the dire consequences of defiance, namely being transmuted into soul orbs and subsequently absorbed. He prompts Vulcan to recollect the trait that defines him, which Vulcan acknowledges as gluttony. This recollection evokes the memory of Jin-Huk's insatiable skill, stoking Vulcan's realization that resistance would merely result in being devoured whole by Jin-Huk's overwhelming power. Following a period of contemplation, Vulcan capitulates, conceding that he possesses no alternative but to acquiesce to Jin-Huk's commands. With a sense of resignation, Vulcan inquires about Jin-Huk's intended course of action. Jin-Huk's outstretched finger points towards a distant castle, signaling their joint mission to topple the Cobalt Lord. At the castle's entrance, two kobolds strive to impede Jin-Huk's advance. However, Jin-Huk responds with a sinister smile, summoning his spiritual entities which promptly dispatch the Cobalt Sentinels. Inwardly, Jin-Huk acknowledges his augmentation, a retinue of 30 Cobalt spirit soldiers now under his command. He notes with confidence that kobolds are no longer worthy adversaries. Determined not to remain passive in this existence, Jin-Huk stands resolute, ordering the kobolds to present their master. Within the castle's confines, the Cobalt Lord directs one of his Cobalt guards to prepare an offering. Simultaneously, beyond the castle walls, Jin-Huk engages in a relentless campaign, utterly annihilating every Cobalt he encounters. Empowered by his spirits, he stands virtually impervious to harm. As a smile graces Jin-Huk's lips, he reminisces about his surroundings, realizing that he's drawing closer to the inner chamber of the Cobalt Lord. Abruptly, a message from Baal appears, informing Jin-Huk of the deity's support, symbolized by the display of luminous batons. Emitting an exasperated sigh, Jin-Huk dismisses the encouragement, rejecting the notion of cheering from an elderly figure with her suit legs. He confidently asserts his impending victory regardless. Shifting back to the Cobalt Lord's realm, a harrowing scene unfolds as the Lord repeatedly impales a hapless victim, demanding more with fervor. He vocalizes his dissatisfaction, insisting that the sacrifices must continue until the entity known as the death-observing demon is appeased. In a sudden shift, two goblins materialize, restraining a young woman adorned with horns. The Goblin Lord identifies her as a doabe, invoking the significance of these legendary beings from Korean mythology and folklore. The Cobalt Lord seizes the doab, asserting that she will serve as a far superior offering compared to mere humans. However, a luminous burst of light erupts, sundering the connection between the Cobalt Lord and the doabe. This unexpected turn draws the Cobalt Lord's attention, causing his gaze to lock onto Jin-Huk, whom he labels an intruder. Unfazed, Jin-Huk's smile takes on an ominous quality as he jests. What do we have here? A human sacrifice? A summoning? Yet Jin-Huk quickly dismisses the significance of these events in relation to his central goal, recognizing that all those present are destined to meet their demise. Jin-Huk gazes upon the Cobalt Lord and remarks that it bears an uncanny resemblance to the wretched scum leader. He is truly enraged by Jin-Huk's comment. The Cobalt Lord demands that Jin-Huk display some respect. However, Jin-Huk slyly counters that the Lord's arrogance far outweighs its status as a mere first-floor monster. The Doai, though unsure of the situation, recognizes that the Cobalt Lord is preoccupied by Jin-Huk's presence, granting her the opportunity to flee. Spotting her escape, the Cobalt Lord bellows in anger, questioning how she dares to run. Seeking strength from the death-observing demon, the Cobalt Lord captures Jin-Huk's attention. The Cobalt Lord then unleashes a devastating attack known as the Corpse Spear, aimed directly at the Doai. As she stumbles and falls, her inner thoughts echo her reluctance to meet her end here. In an unexpected turn, Jin-Huk materializes to shield her from the assault, effortlessly thwarting the strike. The Cobalt Lord is left utterly stunned, bewildered by Jin-Huk's ability to effortlessly deflect the onslaught. Grateful, the Doai expresses her thanks, but Jin-Huk sternly instructs her to vacate the area. A closer inspection reveals her to be a Doai, a powerful species residing on the H100th floor, and Jin-Huk asserts that they shouldn't concern themselves with matters beneath that level, particularly an individual who has yet to reach adulthood. Curious about the girl's situation, Jin-Huk decides to save her, anticipating the acquisition of valuable information. The Cobalt Lord protests Jin-Huk's interference with its offering, prompting Jin-Huk to warn her to find a hiding spot, as he won't rescue her a second time. Undeterred, the Cobalt Lord readies a menacing attack, preparing to unleash two explosive kobolds. However, Jin-Huk remains unfazed, taunting that it's too slow before delivering a forceful blow that propels the Cobalt Lord into the air. The Cobalt Lord's astonishment deepens, grappling with the incongruity of a first-floor climber possessing such formidable strength. As Jin-Huk springs into the air, poised to deliver a powerful punch to the Cobalt Lord, the latter beseeches the death-observing demon for salvation. In response, the blood amassed by the Cobalt Lord over decades coalesces into a blood golem which seizes Jin-Huk. Perplexed, Jin-Huk ponders how the Cobalt Lord managed to summon such a potent familiar. The golem hurls Jin-Huk to the ground with considerable force, evoking triumphant laughter from the Cobalt Lord, who dubs this formidable spectacle his seance. Jin-Huk, in a menacing tone, repeats the term seance before demanding whether the Cobalt Lord comprehends the individual he's addressing. With determination, Jin-Huk summons his spirits, vowing to obliterate the blood golem and demonstrate the true power of a seance. The Cobalt Lord is left dumbfounded by the swiftness with which Jin-Huk dismantles the golem. Fixing Fixing the Cobalt Lord with an intense gaze, Jin-Huk highlights that blood golems are not within a Cobalt's purview to create, even if it's a Lord monster. He inquires whether the death-observing demon Bun played a part in this, to which the demon confirms. Jin-Huk recalls that Bun, intrigued by his abilities as a spirit master, summoned the blood golem upon witnessing his confrontation with one of its followers. Jin-Huk dismisses the golem as a mere plaything, noting that Bun forcibly depleted the Cobalt Lord's mana through its summoning. Fearing retribution even in death, the Cobalt Lord wails that Bun will avenge him. Jin-Huk dryly retorts that the Cobalt should ensure that Bun follows through, given the weight of his actions. As the spirit Cobalt seizes the Cobalt Lord, it defiantly proclaims its kingship, imploring them to remember. Jin-Huk wisely informs Bun that this marks the end of its little experiment, emphasizing that it's at fault for testing him. With a gaze oozing menace, Jin-Huk declares that in addition, Bun will pay for attempting to challenge him. The death-observing demon Bun responds with hearty laughter, expressing its admiration. As Jin-Huk clenches his fist, a splatter of blood paints the scene, and a demonic incarnation of Jin-Huk emerges within the pool of Cobalt blood on the floor. As the essence of the Cobalt Lord tries to escape, Jin-Huk seizes it and transforms it into a soul orb. This act, soul orb production, is a fundamental skill of a necromancer, enabling the user to gather valuable components. Jin-Huk opens his mouth, consumes the substantial spirit ball. Pausing briefly, he contemplates that it didn't live up to his expectations, though it won't matter once he reaches the 50th floor. His thoughts are interrupted by a young woman who expresses gratitude for her rescue, identifying herself as Haru. She extends her thanks, and Jin-Huk reassures her, explaining his presence was due to dealing with the Cobalt Lord. However, Haru remains insistent on thanking him for saving her life. Out of the blue, Jin-Huk questions what she would have done if he were a malevolent individual capable of harming her and exploiting her like a doab. Haru's tone takes on a menacing edge as she asserts that she would handle such a situation. Jin-Huk ponders that when it comes to repaying favors and seeking revenge, they are vigilant about settling their debts. With a chuckle, Jin-Huk likens her response to that of a doabe. He inquires about her presence on a lower floor despite seemingly belonging on the 100th floor. Haru discloses that a group attacked the doabe village on the 100th floor, leaving Jin-Huk taken aback. Jin-Huk reflects that doabs are a robust species within the tower, posing a challenge even for climbers. He wonders if the attackers were part of the four great species, the Colossus of Strength Giants, the Essence of Magic Dragons, the Masters of Demonic Energy Demons, and the Wings of Retribution Angels. These four dominate the tower's hierarchy. Jin-Huk speculates that the attackers would have had to possess some connection to these species or their guilds. Deciding to depart, Jin-Huk asks Haru if she intends to remain amid pools of blood. She expresses her desire to accompany him, and he contemplates that, despite her youth, she could be a valuable addition to his group. He informs her of his impending busy schedule and inability to provide constant protection. She asserts her ability to fend for herself. Jin-Huk remarks that she narrowly escaped death from the Cobalt Lord, but she playfully retorts that her lapse in vigilance caused that. Surveying his blood-stained attire, Jin-Huk privately acknowledges the need for new clothing. His gaze shifts to the Cobalt Lord, catching sight of an equipment item. Stepping out of the castle in his fresh new attire, a portal emerges, heralding Vulcan's arrival to confirm the extermination of all living Cobalts within the castle. Haru inquires about the identity of the old man, prompting Vulcan's astonishment at her ability to see him. Haru explains that a select few doabs possess a strong affinity with souls. With a knowing smile, Jin-Huk concludes that Haru is a unique doabi. He briefly entertains the thought of using gluttony to absorb her ability, but decides against it, choosing instead to keep her close and train her. Jin-Huk is investing in a respectable system notification materializing, presenting Jin-Huk with the Monster Wave quest, an invitation to defeat a Lord monster that could trigger a monster wave. Both Vulcan and Haru advise him against accepting it, yet Jin-Huk reasons that he wouldn't have embarked on this journey if he didn't intend to accept challenges despite criticism from others. Jin-Huk's decision prompts concern from a deity called Peak of All Evil, and a death-observing demon offers a reward for ranking first in contribution. With a confident grin, Jin-Huk resolves to decide after seeing the reward. Vulcan expresses disbelief, questioning if Jin-Huk truly wishes to tempt fate. Jin-Huk acknowledges that Vulcan might wish for his death for the sake of freedom, but he changes his stance, asserting that Vulcan will remain his servant even beyond death. Confirming his choice with a press of a button, the system broadcasts a notice of a looming monster wave in Coral Village's first-floor safety zone. Villagers ponder the identity of the person who accepted the perilous quest. A climber advises those who completed the quest to hasten to the second floor before the wave's onslaught, emphasizing that once it begins, escape becomes impossible. A brilliant light bathes the forest, releasing countless cobalts, evoking screams of terror from the assembled climbers who fear their impending demise. Yet a sudden burst of light reveals only Jin-Huk and his companions emerging unscathed. Jin-Huk asserts that if anyone dares to touch even a single cobalt, he will swiftly unleash a wave of destruction upon all of them. The climbers find themselves pondering over the identities of the main character and his companions, who caution them about the perilous situation. However, Jin-Huk astonishes everyone by summoning his spirit soldiers, leaving them in awe as they wonder how he acquired such a class on the first floor amidst the chaos. How do you ask Jin-Huk if she too can attempt to achieve the Slayer title? Jin-Huk advises her to act swiftly, as he doubts the spirit soldiers will leave her any opportunity. Calming her concerns, Haru shares her plan, invoking a skill called a pocket plane. To Jin-Huk's surprise, she extracts a sword from this plane and deftly eliminates a kobold. Jin-Huk privately acknowledges the extraordinary nature of the sword and its wielder, a young doab who wields it with mastery. A realization dawns on Jin-Huk, causing him to speculate whether the invader's target is Haru. Amidst this turmoil, a climber named Kim Suai confronts Jin-Huk, questioning his authority over the wave. In response, Jin-Huk calmly inquires about Kim's identity, prompting Kim to proudly introduce himself as a member of the White Swallow Guild, a subsidiary of the renowned 9-star Pelon siblings Holy Land Guild. Tension rises as Jin-Huk's anger surfaces upon mention of the Pelon siblings. Kim further boasts that he and his brother plan to join the guild upon reaching the 10th floor. Kim's observation of Jin-Huk's remarkable skills leads to an offer to help him join the guild through his brother in a timely manner. A spirit seizes Kim, providing Jin-Huk with a moment to extract information from him. Jin-Huk issues a veiled threat, implying that they'll meet again after the wave, for Jin-Huk has questions demanding answers. However, other climbers chastise Jin-Huk, disapproving of his intimidation tactics. Jin-Huk dismissively explains that within the tower, strength prevails, unlike on Earth where societal norms restrain certain actions. As Jin-Huk releases Kim, he cautions him to heed his words, using his need for information as his sole reason for sparing him. He urges the climbers to distance themselves from him, rather than provoke him further. The climbers, concerned about their friend, discuss their course of action. In a surprising twist, Kim advises them to flee, fearing the consequences of encountering Jin-Huk once more on the battlefield. Jin-Huk and Vulcan adopt a menacing demeanor as they execute a powerful attack from the sky, overwhelming the kobolds. As they land, they summon their soldiers, further turning the tide against the cobalt forces. Jin-Huk instructs Vulcan to transform the fallen into skeletons, a request Vulcan dismisses, stating it's unnecessary to remind him. With a resolute stride, Jin-Huk engages the kobolds in combat, dispatching them swiftly and gracefully. Meanwhile, Haru, fatigued, falls victim to a cobalt ambush, resulting in a severe injury. With unwavering determination, Haru reflects on her current wound, comparing it to the anguish she endured when her village was engulfed in flames. In her eyes, this injury pales in comparison. She engages in battle with an unwavering resolve, pressing on until she reaches her physical limits. Amidst the combat, her attention shifts towards Jin-Huk, prompting her to wonder how a mere first-floor climber, a human, could possess such extraordinary strength. She resolves to follow in Jin-Huk's footsteps and ascend the tower, envisioning her vengeance upon those responsible for her village's destruction. As a cobalt nears her, Vulcan intervenes, preventing the attack and inquiring about her well-being. Struggling to rise, Haru's determination leaves an impression on Vulcan, who ponders the hardship she must have faced. Haru questions why he aided her, perplexing Vulcan. She recounts that when she fled from the 100th floor, no one offered assistance. She expresses gratitude for encountering kindness rather than hostility. With a pointed look, she probes Vulcan about their motives for helping her. Vulcan responds that spirit soldiers must obey their spirit master's commands, and that Jin-Huk instructed him to ensure Haru's survival and the completion of her objective. He informs her of his departure, motivated by the desire to evade Jin-Huk's potential reprimands for not working diligently enough. Haru reflects inwardly, recognizing Jin-Huk as the sole individual who offered her assistance within the tower. She's determined to repay his kindness. Masked, she transforms into an entirely different persona, swiftly dispatching numerous kobolds with astonishing speed. Meanwhile, Jin-Huk's intuition proves correct. The assailants who targeted Haru's village were after her and the distinctive sword she wields. Jin-Huk deems it prudent to keep this knowledge hidden, understanding the potential impact on Haru if she were to discover her connection to the tragedy. As the final minute of the wave ticks away, the trio of heroes valiantly battles the remaining kobold. Realizing the last enemy standing, Jin-Huk expertly throws his knife, ending the threat and concluding the wave. The system extends congratulations for Jin-Huk's effective wave-stopping effort. With the ordeal finally concluded, Haru succumbs to exhaustion, but Jin-Huk's swift intervention prevents her fall. He inquires about her well-being and cautions against using her skill when fatigued. Haru blushes and expresses her gratitude towards Jin-Huk. In a system interface that materializes before them, it's announced that rewards will be distributed for contribution in the first, second, and third positions. Jin-Huk's excitement mounts as he anticipates receiving his well-deserved compensation. Our protagonist attained an achievement that granted a +5 bonus to all attributes, along with 500 achievement points. Gazing upon the augmentation, he comprehended that while it represented a minor advancement, the achievement points carried a more profound significance for him. Through these points, he could access a diverse array of abilities and potentially perpetually enhance his attributes. The initial recipient of the achievement was Jin-Huk, followed by Haru and then Vulcan. Vulcan found himself puzzled by receiving an award, but Jin-Huk conjectured that Vulcan's expertise warranted it. Despite this, our hero held the belief that Vulcan ought to grant him the award. Similarly, Haru wished to bestow her reward upon our hero, symbolizing hope for their shared future. Following contemplation, our hero hesitated, his past betrayals prompting distrust. He was wary of being being manipulated by the girl, and reluctant to accept what appeared to be a substantial inducement for second place. He desired the girl to earn his trust, or else he would reconsider her companionship. In that very moment, the girl conjured a portal, extracting her mask and donning it along with her received rewards. Vulcan was taken aback as the girl intended to relinquish the mask. Our hero understood the mask as a representation of their life essence, not something to be given to strangers. Puzzled by the girl's gesture, he learned it was a token of gratitude for saving her life twice, evidence of her trust. He sensed a deeper meaning behind the mask. Suddenly, the girl faded away, revealing her underlying motive, revenge. She recounted the destruction of her village, her status as the sole survivor fueling her quest for vengeance. Overwhelmed by emotion, she extended her reward to our hero, entreating him to join her in the tower. Touched by her plea, our hero accepted the reward, yet cautioned her against dire consequences should she betray him. Tears of joy streamed down the girl's face as she eagerly anticipated their continued journey together. Our hero dismissed his rewards, understanding that names held little significance. As he did so, a mana ring, necklace, and earrings manifested. Vulcan approved of the items, deeming them perfect for a necromancer reliant on mana to support their forces. These items would augment our hero's creatures by 45%. They unanimously agreed to set course for Boone, prompting our hero to question the promise made to him. Upon arrival, discovering the city empty, Jin Huk speculated that its inhabitants likely sought refuge on the second floor or within the woods to evade the approaching wave. Our hero pursued the conversation, inquiring about the demon's commitment and the quality of the anticipated item. The demon requested patience, yet at that moment a ring materialized on the table, emitting a palpable demonic energy. Our hero was incredulous, for this energy's presence implied attraction to demons. Although the ring granted access to demonic energy, its possession of the highest quality mana seemed unbelievable. Such power usually demanded submission to demons, rendering this revelation extraordinary. Prepared to extend a handshake, the demon's offer was accepted by our hero, recognizing the value of the item. Vulcan advocated focusing on ascending the tower, while Bal seethed with jealousy, also requesting a handshake. Jin Huk declined unless a gift was proffered, and Vulcan sought items from the demon as well. Hence, Bal formulated a quest or task for Jin Huk. Realizing the opportunity, Jin Huk understood the mutual benefit of their arrangement. Our protagonist agreed to undertake the task stowed upon them by Bal, though Bal started to show signs of uncertainty. Our hero proposed that if Bal was unwilling to act, then they should abstain from action. However, it was clear to all that this decision came too late due to the already established agreement. At that instance, a notification materialized before our hero outlining the conditions of the pact. The mission designated by Bal was for our hero to establish a reputation before reaching the 100th floor. Failing to do so would entail our hero becoming Bal's apostle, effectively his disciple. In the event of success, Bal pledged to provide a blueprint for any creation. The sole stipulation of the contract was a handshake with Bal. Our hero found it difficult to believe their ears. The prospect of gaining a blueprint for anything left them exhilarated. Nevertheless, becoming Bal's apprentice was something they ardently wished to avoid. In spite of this, they resolved to seize the opportunity and shook hands with Bal. Exiting the establishment, they pondered their next steps. Their objective was to locate Kim and extract pertinent information from him. Jin Huk instructed Vulcan to track him down. Vulcan inquired whether Jin Huk had Kim's whereabouts, to which Jin Huk disclosed that he had stationed a spiritual soldier on Kim. Despite Kim being distant, he remained on the first floor. Just before entering the portal, Vulcan reproached Jin Huk for not informing him earlier, prompting Vulcan to respond that he would make his way there. Jin Huk suggested to Haru that they converse while walking, revealing a mask and urging Haru to provide further insights about it. Strolling through the forest, Haru succinctly explained that the mask granted its wearer the ability to employ their DOI capabilities. Jin Huk inquired about the connection of DOI abilities to charms and supernatural powers, an assertion Haru affirmed. Haru articulated that she could use her supernatural abilities and employ the foresight skill to glimpse into the future. Jin Huk contemplated the concept of foresight, finding it somewhat regrettable as he would have preferred an ability useful in combat. Abruptly, Haru fixed her gaze on him, leading Jin Huk to question the reason. Haru brushed it off as nothing, and remarked that she found Jin Huk to be rather peculiar. She recounted how outsiders would travel for days to consult the village elders, who possessed the ability to glimpse into the future. Many sought these seers out of concern for their impending fate, striving to avert it through any means possible. Jin Huk questioned the necessity of avoiding it, suggesting that if there was a source of apprehension, he could simply overcome it. Haru responded, expressing her relief and stating that her abilities would be well suited to Jin Huk. Despite his ongoing confusion, Haru elaborated that her ability was battle foresight, tailored for combat. She asked if her skill was beneficial, and unexpectedly Jin Huk embraced her, praising her abilities. Blushing profusely, Haru found herself caught off guard. While still holding her, Jin Huk conveyed his satisfaction that she possessed this ability, deeming her the best. He privately mused about the various combat-specialized 9 stars, speculating his chances in a confrontation. Meanwhile, Haru struggled to catch her breath and maintain her composure. The divine and demonic entities observed the unfolding situation with great intrigue. Our hero chided Bal for their persistent presence, yet Bal expressed delight in assisting and pledged aid in Haru's quest for vengeance. Jin Huk extended his apologies to Haru for for the spontaneous hug, with Haru assuring him it was inconsequential and she was content to offer assistance. Jin-hook pledged to make the most of the mask's potential and support her in her quest for revenge. Grateful, Haru wished them both a promising future. Vulcan, in the meantime, had apprehended Kim and recommended awaiting his master's arrival. He inquired about our hero's whereabouts and the challenges of detaining someone without causing harm. Our hero requested Vulcan's clearance to approach Kim, driving his sword into a nearby tree. Jin-hook informed Kim that he intended to return his sword, considering where to strike next depending on Kim's response and his own inclination. Kim consented to divulge all he knew, including insights into the guilds. After amassing the necessary information, our hero allowed Kim to depart. Thoughts arose about forming an alliance with the Sacred State and guilds from the 10th to the 200th levels, recognizing the advantages of cooperation in their effort to overcome them. Haru broached the topic of Baal's task, and our hero concurred, suggesting that dismantling the guilds under the twins' influence would provide an opportunity to fulfill the demon's directive. They resolved to proceed to the 10th floor. The setting shifted to the safe zone on the 2nd floor, where discussions swirled about our protagonist's triumph over the wave. As they traversed a portal, the sight of Jin-hook's ghost mask prompted unease and recognition among the bystanders. Following his triumph over the wave, individuals inquired about his guild and identity. Recalling Baal's instructions, Jin-hook decided it wasn't the right moment to unveil his true name. Thus, he introduced himself with an air of menace as Ghostface. People assumed that Jin-hook had a shady past before he arrived at the tower, given the common practice of people seeking refuge inside its walls. Jin-hook felt relieved that things were unfolding as he'd planned, because concealing one's identity within the tower was par for the course. He was confident that his news about the wave and the mysterious mask had piqued people's curiosity without revealing more. Jin-hook and his team teleported away in a lush forest. They were greeted by the system ushering them to the tower's 2nd floor. The quest was straightforward. Defeat 10 kobolds and 10 cobalt warriors each to proceed. Jin-hook, being the laid-back person he was, promptly assigned the task to Vulcan. Vulcan, struggling to contain his irritation, asked, "Do you want me to bring them back alive to you?" Jin-hook, unfazed, replied affirmatively, "And you can bring Haru with you if you want. I'm going to experiment with demonic energy. Return quickly if you want to witness it." Vulcan soared into the sky, advising Jin-hook not to deplete all the demonic energy before his return. Innocently, Haru questioned the ethics of completing the quest this way, to which Jin-hook retorted, "If you don't like it, feel free to do it yourself. I'm not forcing anyone." Summoning his demonic energy with a twist of his rings, Jin-hook declared, "Let's see how this works." He gathered a fiery swirl of demonic energy. Suddenly, Haru alerted Jin-hook to a lurking kobold. Jin-hook attempted to strike the monster with a skill called demonic exposure, but the creature narrowly evaded the attack, sustaining only a minor graze. Haru pointed out the monster's evasion, but Jin-hook explained, "It's an attack that doesn't need to hit." Strangely, the kobold began to crumble as if made of stone. Surprised, Haru asked what happened, and Jin-hook explained that demonic energy was a brutal force unfit for the uninitiated. Jin-hook then captured the spirit of Cobalt to commence his experiment. He hoped that infusing demonic energy into a spirit soldier would create a stronger one, but the soul started to disintegrate under the strain. Jin-hook quickly reduced the demonic energy to a manageable level, successfully creating a new spirit soldier with a touch of demonic energy. Haru praised his accomplishment, but Jin-hook expressed his surprise at how easy it was for him, given that not many could handle pure demonic energy like demons. Vulcan returned with the captured monsters and marveled at the newly created spirit. He called it a demon soul soldier. Vulcan inspected it closely, stating, "This soldier is perfectly fused," and Vulcan commended his student, contemplating the difficulty of infusing souls with demonic energy on the field. Jin-hook decided to entrust summoning to Vulcan. Acknowledging his proficiency in the task, Vulcan blushed at the praise, remarking that Jin-hook finally respected him. Jin-hook suddenly imbued demonic energy all over Vulcan, causing him intense pain. Vulcan questioned Jin-hook's intentions, and Jin-hook revealed his plan. "If I infuse demonic energy into Vulcan's soul, the spirit soldiers he summons will become demon soldiers automatically." He proceeded to use all his demonic energy, enveloping Vulcan in a massive amount. Haru worriedly asked about Vulcan's safety, but Jin-hook assured her, "The first spirit master won't die from something like this." Vulcan, now transformed into a demon soul soldier, warned Jin-hook, "You made a mistake. Creating a summon stronger than yourself is your biggest blunder as a necromancer." Jin-hook donned the mask and confidently replied, "I needed a worthy opponent with the mask on anyway." Vulcan conjures a multitude of new demon soul warriors. Jin-hook triggers the mask's power, sensing a deceleration in the soldiers. However, he soon realizes the alteration in his perception of time, reminiscent of Haru's everyday experience. Swiftly, Jin-hook eradicates the monsters, dealing a forceful blow to Vulcan's visage. Vulcan crumples, producing a resounding impact, concerned nor at Haru yet. Jin-hook consoles her, stating, "Fear not, physical assaults won't extinguish souls like that." Haru then inquires whether Jin-hook harnessed the mask's power. Confirming, he relates, "It felt as if everything moved at a pace slower than mine. It was like I became briefly the supreme martial artist." Haru attributes this occurrence as an unintended consequence of the skill's malfunction. Jin-hook's confusion prompts him to query, "If this was an unintended effect, what's the actual purpose of the mask?" Haru clarifies, "I mentioned it grants battle foresight, correct? fact. Not only should the foe's movements decelerate, but you should also anticipate their forthcoming actions. Jin-Huk seizes her shoulders, inquiring, how can I attain such mastery? She humbly confesses, it emerged instinctively for me. Jin-Huk ponders her prodigious ability even among the dokubis. Haru assesses his well-being, wondering if he experiences dizziness, to which Jin-Huk responds that he is fine. She mentions that untrained individuals often undergo symptoms like headaches and vertigo when attempting special abilities. Haru admits this pertains to her as well, stating, foresight eludes my control. I felt it since you initially couldn't activate the skill. Jin-Huk jests, you possess a knack for pinpointing vulnerabilities. Haru playfully retorts, not quite my intention. I'm sure you'll soon master it. Following this setback, Jin-Huk acknowledges his excessive excitement about being unbelievably strong on the second floor. Conversely, Vulcan wallows in despondency due to his failure, ruminating, I am the paramount spirit master. How have I plummeted thus? Haru approaches Vulcan, and misunderstanding her, he embraces her, shedding tears, asserting that she arrived to lift his spirits. Unlike Jin-Huk, Haru clarifies her intention. They need him to summon spirit soldiers from the cobalt creatures for a quest completion. Thus, they rapidly conquer both the third and fourth floors. Yet on the fifth floor, rumors swirl regarding a person self-dubbed Ghostface, who supposedly cleared the fourth floor and ventured into the fifth floor's forest within a mere 3 days. One individual remarks, don't fret, he can only handle cobalt creatures. From the fifth floor onward, venomous goblins armed with potent poison needles emerge. Now, Jin-Huk is occupied with an activity involving his mama on the ground. Unbeknownst, a goblin hides on a tree, launching a poison needle at Jin-Huk. Haru intervenes, severing the needle before impact. A wicked grin plays upon her lips as she jeers, you dare assault Jin-Huk? In response, Vulcan dispatches a spirit soldier to vanquish the goblin. Vulcan commends Haru's swift action in neutralizing the poison needle, yet his astonishment surges upon observing her sinister expression wielding her sword. Vulcan subsequently inquires about her well-being, and she regains her composure. She herself is taken aback by her own amusement while clutching her sword. Following this, Jin-Huk rises and declares, my preparations are complete, and tonight a formidable wave of monsters shall descend. It's worth noting that previously, just before entering the fifth floor, Jin-Huk informed his team that the upcoming floor would be populated by goblins instead of cobbles, and their aim was to earn the title of Goblin Slayer. Haru raises a question regarding the necessity of hunting the Lord Monster. Once again, Vulcan informs him that such a hunt cannot be undertaken at will. The appearance of the monster is unpredictable, and its location on the tower remains uncertain. Jin-Huk clarifies that he has no intention of pursuing the Goblin Lord, since he possesses the knowledge to manually initiate a wave. Both of them are taken aback upon learning that Jin-Huk has the ability to manually trigger a wave. Vulcan points out that if such a method existed, rumors would surely have circulated throughout the tower. Jin-Huk explains that he stumbled upon this information purely by chance. Recounting the event, he says, during one of my hunts near the periphery of the 400th floor, a crevice materialized as I scaled the tower. It was then that I made the discovery. He further elaborates that each floor houses a central zone that spawns monsters. By directing one's mana into this area, it engenders creatures akin to those in a monster wave. Vulcan acknowledges, you must have reaped significant benefits from this revelation. Jin-Huk admits that he has only utilized this technique once, as the monsters encountered on the 300th floor and above differ significantly from goblins in scale. He even states, even facing the 4 great species head-on during a wave would prove insurmountable. Vulcan remarks, when this exploit was viable, you were unaware of its existence and couldn't capitalize on it. Jin-Huk concurs, saying, the circumstances have changed. Now we intend to provoke numerous waves to expedite our growth. Returning to the present, players on the 5th floor perceive seismic tremors. A massive portal materializes akin to events on the 2nd floor, and a horde of goblins pours forth. Unable to contend with their overwhelming numbers, the players flee, grappling with their helplessness. Suddenly, Jin-Huk emerges, advising, the uninjured individuals should escort the wounded to safety. The sight of the Ghostface visage elicits joy as he has triumphed over a wave before. Jin-Huk engineered this dramatic entrance to propagate rumors about his prowess. He then summons his new demon spirit soldiers to assail the enemy. Mid-battle, Jin-Huk discerns that his demon soul soldiers are ablaze, their tormentors being the psychic goblins. To Vulcan, Jin-Huk emphasizes the need to eliminate these psychic goblins before the raid can be successful. Haru intervenes, decimating the monsters on the opposite side. Jin-Huk employs his glutton skill to absorb the remains of a deceased psychic goblin, absorbing its fiery ability that influences even souls. With his soul fire skill, he swiftly eradicates the goblins in his vicinity. Suddenly, Haru's sword radiates immense energy, conjuring a set of equipment upon her person. Without warning, she launches an attack on Jin-Huk with her blade. With a single swift stroke of her sword, Haru cleaved through nearly half the city, leaving goblins who witnessed it utterly astounded by such immense power. Meanwhile, Jin-Huk stood there in sheer amazement as Haru obliterated the entire village in an instant. Upon closer inspection, he seemed to recognize the sword in her hands. A malevolent chuckle escaped her lips as she swung her blade toward Jin-Huk, who narrowly dodged, the sheer force obliterating the building behind him. Removing his mask, Jin-Huk revealed himself herself and asked her if she recognized him. Though she continued her relentless assault, Jin-Huk managed to block her strikes but couldn't help but acknowledge her overwhelming strength. With a mighty blow, Haru sent Jin-Huk hurtling through the ruins, causing Vulcan to worry and call out their names telepathically. Vulcan inquired about their well-being, and Jin-Huk reassured him, explaining that it felt like they were facing the Doai's final vanguard. With the monsters already dealt with, Jin-Huk instructed Vulcan to handle the rest. Readjusting his mask, he knew his priority was dealing with Haru. In a daring leap towards Haru, Jin-Huk employed his battle foresight skill. Sensing the impending danger from her sword, he understood that failing to act would mean being cut to pieces. As he prepared to swing his axe at her, he reminded himself that there were no allies or enemies within the tower. Despite her tragic story, this was the end. However, a moment of hesitation washed over him as he recalled her joyful demeanor. That momentary pause allowed Haru to seize his axe and use her own battle foresight. Her grin and menacing stare promised destruction. She slashed Jin-Huk, sending him reeling and injuring him. In a desperate move, Jin-Huk summoned his skeletons, reanimating the goblins who had perished. He directed them to confront Haru. Astonishingly, she effortlessly sliced the skeleton soldiers into pieces. Jin-Huk, bewildered by her speed, wondered if she had used her battle foresight. He couldn't help but acknowledge that she was overwhelmingly powerful, leaving him questioning how he could possibly defeat her. Then a massive explosion occurred, propelling Jin-Huk backward. As he distanced himself from her, he sensed that something was amiss. He wondered if she was exhausted or experiencing some kind of side effect. Noticing her bleeding eyes, he realized something was wrong. He considered whether this was the rebound Haru had mentioned. If that were the case, he saw a glimmer of hope, but he needed to ensure she couldn't use her battle foresight anymore. Jin-Huk sprinted and she pursued him. He leapt into a house through a window, causing Haru to momentarily pause. Jin-Huk taunted her, asking if she was coming for him. She menacingly leaped inside the window, preparing to attack. However, Jin-Huk suddenly reanimated two goblin zombies armed with paralytic poison darts, confidently stating that even a Doabi would be affected by the dart with a direct hit. As the darts closed in, Jin-Huk doubted that Haru could evade them without her battle foresight. She made the choice to employ her unique ability and skillfully deflected the incoming darts and the zombie soldiers, much to Jin-Huk's dismay. Subsequently, she lunged at Jin-Huk, attempting a decisive slash, but Jin-Huk narrowly evaded her relentless attacks. Undeterred, she fixed her intense gaze on Jin-Huk and let out an eerie laugh, poised to impale him with her sword. However, in a surprising turn of events, a dart found its mark in Jin-Huk, piercing through him and striking Haru. Jin-Huk admitted that without the rebound effect from using battle foresight, his seemingly implausible plan would have surely failed. His ingenious scheme involved shooting her with a poison dart from her blind spot, and it proved successful. Despite her fury, she collapsed, and Jin-Huk just managed to catch her before she hit the ground. However, an unusual sensation lingered in his hands, making him wonder if it was a result of the paralytic poison from the dart. Jin-Huk decided to instruct one of his goblin zombies to fetch him a dart, which she promptly absorbed. In that moment, Jin-Huk gained newfound resistance to the effects of the dart, developing a paralytic ability. Observing Haru, Jin-Huk remarked that she possessed quite the vexing power. Meanwhile, Haru found herself in a serene, ethereal realm, floating amidst a beautiful pink landscape with her sword before her. Confused and disoriented, she couldn't place her whereabouts. Suddenly, a man approached and inquired if she was the new wielder of the Dragon Slayer sword. He scrutinized her and noticed her youth, prompting Haru to inquire if he was a dokebi. The man responded cryptically that she was both right and wrong. Perplexed, Haru pressed him for an explanation, but he swiftly held his sword to her throat as a warning. He cautioned her that next time, if she drew the sword without proper preparation, it would consume her in an instant. She awoke, her senses returning, finding herself being carried by Jin-Huk. Baffled by their location, she questioned Jin-Huk's actions. Blushing slightly, he reassured her that he would explain everything later. As she rested on the bed, Jin-Huk outlined their plan to replenish their resources and proceed to the 10th floor. He explained that every 10th floor within the tower held a significant city and a boss monster they needed to defeat to progress. Haru mentioned her knowledge of the formidable orc warrior Vulcan, which Jin-Huk affirmed was akin to a lord-level monster. However, when Haru suggested they would all go once they were healed, Jin-Huk abruptly halted her with a firm no. He clarified that from now on, she would operate independently from the group. Shocked, Haru questioned his intentions, fearing abandonment. Jin-Huk reassured her that he wasn't abandoning her and reminded her of the events on the 5th floor. Her memories ceased at a certain point, and Jin-Huk informed her that her sword was a demon blade possessing a skill comparable to an ego sword. It granted incredible power, but eroded one's sanity in return. Seated on the bed, he emphasized that relying on such an unstable power would lead to her breakdown before reaching the 100th floor. He assigned her a task, encouraging her to develop her own strength independently of the sword and ascend to the 10th floor on her own. It was her homework. She understood Jin-Huk's intentions to help her grow stronger. With a cheerful expression, she accepted the challenge, promising to become a worthy ally for Jin-Huk. Jin-Huk smirked and said, "All right." The next morning, Jin-Huk, Vulcan, and Haru stood on the street. Haru expressed her gratitude for the rope and her intention to catch up with Jin-Huk as soon as possible. Jin-Huk assured her that he would be waiting. With that, they parted ways, each embarking on their separate journeys. A few days later, up on the 9th floor, Jin-Huk continued to put his new mask from Haru to the test. best. In front of him were creatures unlike the goblins he'd faced earlier, but they didn't pose any real danger. Vulcan observed Jin-Huk and asked for his thoughts, but Jin-Huk was more interested in discussing Vulcan's role in extracting orc souls for creating orc soul soldiers. Vulcan remarked that creating waves seemed to be their new routine, to which Jin-Huk suggested he not complain. Although Vulcan assured him he was enjoying it, Vulcan couldn't help but notice Jin-Huk's indifference, as he'd never once mentioned Haru during their floor clearing. Jin-Huk asked Vulcan what he meant, then revealed he wouldn't have accepted her as an ally if he knew she would fail. He recognized her strength and her unwavering desire for revenge. Jin-Huk then urged Vulcan to focus on bringing more orcs to complete their task, since the manual wave seemed insufficient. Vulcan, visibly angered, expressed disbelief at Jin-Huk's apparent lack of respect for his elders, and inquired about Jin-Huk's parents. Jin-Huk calmly stated he didn't have parents and questioned what was wrong with that. Vulcan was taken aback by this revelation. Jin-Huk went on to explain that he was raised in an orphanage, shedding light on why he acted the way he did. In a moment of understanding, Vulcan placed a comforting hand on Jin-Huk's shoulder and even asked for a hug. However, Jin-Huk quickly recoiled, telling Vulcan to stay away because he despised pity. Despite this brief tension, Jin-Huk soon achieved the Orc Slayer title. Now on the 10th floor, the room of trials, a notification appeared stating they needed to defeat the boss to proceed. Failure meant going back to the 9th floor. A scoreboard displayed records of previous clears, all completed within a minute. Jin-Huk noticed Vulcan's name was absent, and Vulcan pointed out that Jin-Huk's name wasn't there either. Vulcan explained that most of the records belonged to members of the 4 great species due to their innate skills. Jin-Huk suggested they attempt to break the record today, and Vulcan laughed in agreement. The system informed them of a 1-minute preparation time before the boss battle. Jin-Huk found the preparation time useful, especially for planning. Jin-Huk instructed Vulcan to utilize his demon soul soldiers to immobilize the boss upon its spawn, to which Vulcan promptly summoned his soul soldiers, acknowledging his understanding. Jin-Huk, with determination, placed his hand on the floor, activating a magic circle that materialized a magic spear. With a vow to demonstrate the prowess of a true master, he cast enchantments like piercing, dexterity, resilience, lethal, and demonic energy on the spear, turning it a foreboding dark purple. Now Jin-Huk, Vulcan, and the soul soldiers stood poised with the spear, eagerly awaiting the boss's arrival. As the preparation time elapsed, the moment of truth arrived. The countdown initiated with 3, 2, 1, summoning the formidable great orc warrior. With resolute eyes, the massive orc boss materialized before them. Acting swiftly, Vulcan commanded his soul soldiers to immobilize the orc, and they executed the order without delay. Jin-Huk took aim and hurled the spear toward the orc with incredible speed. The boss's head was severed, shattering the record in less than a second. The system offered Jin-Huk the chance to immortalize his name, and he opted for Ghostface. The news rapidly spread as a notification was sent to everyone confirming that the record-breaking feat was accomplished by Ghostface. It came as no surprise since our boy was the one who achieved this remarkable feat. On the 8th floor, the astonishment rippled through the crowd, including Haru, who realized she needed to intensify her training efforts. Vulcan couldn't contain his excitement, struggling to believe that they had triumphed so effortlessly. Shattering the records of the 4 great species was an inconceivable achievement, one that only our heroes had managed to accomplish. Now it was time for them to progress to the 10th floor, and Vulcan concurred, urging them to proceed and await Haru. Upon entering, Jin-Huk received a notification indicating his arrival on the 10th floor, accompanied by a boost of all his stats by +5 and the unlocking of the auction. The scene transitioned to a man tossing a gold coin into the air, observing the new record with satisfaction and musing. Ghostface, huh? A few days later, Jin-Huk and Vulcan ascended to the 10th floor, the initial metropolis climbers would reach, home to the portal leading back to Earth. Consequently, those who gave up on climbing gained commercial rights and shaped the tower's largest city among the first 100 floors. Jin-Huk decided to liquidate the remainder of his spoils, intending to purchase potions and other consumables. As our hero continued to evaluate his new mask, Vulcan mentioned that the city had lifted its auction restrictions, yet the marketplace remained vibrant. Jin-Huk agreed, noting that there were individuals here leading ordinary lives, making it possible to acquire all necessities through auctions. While strolling through the city, persistent merchants pitched their services, persistently mentioning the Gold Lich Inn. Vulcan's frustration mounted, prompting him to inquire about the term Gold Lich. Realizing Vulcan's unfamiliarity, Jin-Huk elucidated that Gold Lich Company was the premier enterprise that emerged years ago. However, Gold Lich referred to an individual, the wealthiest figure in the tower. His true name eluded the public, but rumor had it that an unimaginable amount of gold flowed through his hands. Vulcan, taken aback, questioned Jin-Huk's business agenda, prompting Jin-Huk to point at the Gold Lich Company logo and reveal that he was considering them for sponsorship. Vulcan was astounded, learning that Jin-Huk intended to secure sponsorship from the Gold Lich. The scene shifted to a girl welcoming our heroes to the Gold Lich Company, where she explained that anything of value, be it weapons, loot, potions, or information, could be bought and sold. She handed Jin-Huk a waiting ticket, and Vulcan couldn't help but chuckle when he saw it was number 18, associated with the word fuck in Korean due to its similar pronunciation. After some time, number 18 was called, and a a man named Hal Sion, in charge of the third counter, introduced himself and asked how he could assist them. Jin-Huk, revealing his mask, asked if it would suffice for identification. The man was left flabbergasted as he recognized the ghostly visage before him as Ghostface. Just as Hal Sion was about to announce his name, Jin-Huk silenced him, reminding him of the reason he concealed his identity with the mask. Hal Sion nodded in understanding, prompting Jin-Huk to request an assessment of his finances. He displayed 3,000 gold, the earnings he'd garnered from battling the waves. Hal Sion inquired about Jin-Huk's intentions for such a substantial sum, to which Jin-Huk disclosed his desire for a meeting with the Gold Lich. Hal Sion was taken aback, inwardly questioning Jin-Huk's sanity. Jin-Huk pressed for an explanation, reminding him that Hal Sion had previously stated that anything could be bought and sold in this place. Hal Sion regretfully explained that 2 reasons stood in the way. The Gold Lich was exceptionally occupied, and Jin-Huk's offer of 3,000 gold fell far short of the value the Gold Lich placed on his time. Jin-Huk inquired about the required amount for a meeting with the manager here. After some contemplation, Vulcan couldn't help but label Jin-Huk as an asshole, and enlisted a random employee to arrange a meeting with the company's head. Vulcan questioned what Hal Sion had done to provoke Jin-Huk's actions. In response, Jin-Huk challenged Vulcan to suggest an alternative method to meet the Gold Lich if he had one in mind. Facing a door, Jin-Huk wondered if this was the end. He knocked and introduced himself as Ghostface. The voice inside invited him in, revealing a man seated in a chair who introduced himself as Puppet, the 10th floor branch manager of the Gold Lich Company. Puppet greeted the super rookie and inquired about Jin-Huk's desire to meet the Gold Lich. Jin-Huk affirmed his interest but expressed doubt about the Gold Lich being present. Puppet apologized, citing the insufficiency of Jin-Huk's offered funds. Jin-Huk proposed an alternative. Have Puppet summon the Gold Lich first, confident that a meeting would secure his sponsorship. Puppet, while acknowledging his knowledge of Ghostface, expressed discomfort at Jin-Huk's casual discussion of the Gold Lich. Secretly, Puppet enacted his skill trait, Marionette, encircling Jin-Huk with marionette strings tightening around Jin-Huk's neck. Inwardly, Puppet was confident in his ability to manipulate anyone snared by his strings, and he regretfully informed Jin-Huk that he would have to depart. However, to Puppet's astonishment, Jin-Huk swiftly seized the strings and declared a wager on Puppet's arrogance, shattering the marionette. Puppet was left in disbelief, pondering how Jin-Huk had managed to nullify a skill effective even against climbers on the 180th floor. Abruptly, Puppet brought his hands together, and both he and Jin-Huk appeared to have shifted locations. Puppet remarked that this was likely Jin-Huk's first encounter with this realm. As Puppet attempted to explain their whereabouts, Jin-Huk interjected, identifying the place as the Mind Realm, a boundless dimension formed by separating the soul and mind from the body. Inwardly, Puppet questioned how a 10th floor climber like Jin-Huk could possess knowledge of this esoteric realm. Puppet proceeded to emphasize that within this realm, the laws of reality held no sway. It was a dimension where one had to rely on their life experiences and the strength of their soul to engage in combat. Adopting a menacing demeanor, Puppet proposed that if Jin-Huk wished to emerge victorious in this confrontation, he would endeavor to arrange a meeting with the Gold Lich. Puppet once again snared Jin-Huk with his strings, but this time Jin-Huk responded with a smirk, confidently stating, "The power of one's experience and soul, you're no match for me then." Puppet, on the contrary, couldn't fathom how a newcomer on the 10th floor possessed such profound knowledge. Our hero appeared to have the mental acumen of at least a 100th floor climber, if not higher. Recognizing Jin-Huk as his equal, Puppet knew he had to come up with a more dependable strategy. In that critical moment, he summoned his puppets, an army of controlled dolls surrounding Jin-Huk. Puppet explained that in the realm of the mind, experience equated to strength, and these were puppets Puppet had acquired through his experiences. He disclosed that to ascend beyond the 100th floor, he had enhanced these puppets to be as formidable as a 50th floor climber when infused with mana. Brimming with confidence, Puppet asserted that the winner had already been decided the moment Jin-Huk entered the mind realm. He then commanded his puppets to assail Jin-Huk from all sides, engulfing him. Thinking it was over, Puppet reassured Jin-Huk that injuries in the mind realm didn't carry over to the real world. Suddenly, a colossal explosion erupted behind Puppet, and he turned around in a panic, realizing magic was in play. Emerging from the dark smoke was a menacing purple shadow, transforming into a skeletal mage. Puppet identified it as the Lich Mage and panicked, wondering why the 100th floor boss monster was here. Jin-Huk countered that it wasn't as simple as Puppet thought. While Puppet was left wondering why his puppets were faltering, in a menacing tone, Jin-Huk, now in his past life form, explained that materializing a deceased person in the mind realm took time. He assured Puppet that it wasn't as straightforward as he believed. Jin-Huk found Puppet's puppet army laughable compared to his undead forces, a true embodiment of a formidable army. Jin-Huk confidently declared that the victor had been decided the moment they entered the mind realm, emphasizing that mere puppets were Puppet's downfall. Bewildered and unable to fathom the arrival of bosses above the 100th floor, Puppet screamed in terror, asking who the Ghostface was. Jin-Huk unleashed his army upon Puppet, who let out a terrified scream. Abruptly, they were thrust back into reality. Puppet, sweating profusely, found himself disoriented, wondering when they had returned to the real world since he hadn't even disbanded his own mental realm. He couldn't fathom how Jin-Huk had taken control of the mind world. world. With Jin-Huk firmly in control of the situation, he looked down at the overwhelmed Puppet and admonished him to stop acting like a crybaby and to stand on his own 2 feet. He reminded Puppet of their bet, which was for Puppet to arrange a meeting between Jin-Huk and Gold Lich. Jin-Huk then handed Puppet a letter. Puppet inquired if the letter was all there was, to which Jin-Huk confirmed and instructed him to send it to Gold Lich. While Puppet had lost, he couldn't guarantee a response to the letter, but Jin-Huk exuded confidence that he would indeed receive a reply from Gold Lich. With that, Jin-Huk left. Once outside, Puppet assured Jin-Huk that he would contact his lodging once he received a response. Jin-Huk simply replied with an okay. As Jin-Huk was departing, Puppet and Halcyon bowed, urging Jin-Huk to return safely. As the sky began to cast its evening hues, Vulcan suggested they return to their lodging and rest. Jin-Huk, however, questioned this and asked if there wasn't somewhere else they needed to go. Vulcan, perplexed, inquired if there was another destination. Jin-Huk, sporting a mischievous grin, pointed out the inefficiency of waiting around for Gold Lich's arrival. Since they had time to kill, he emphasized the need to fulfill their responsibilities as guild members. The scene shifts to the White Swallow Guild House. In the lobby, a blonde girl turned to her friend and asked how far she'd climbed in the tower. Her friend replied, 57th floor. The blonde girl couldn't fathom why they were stuck in the 10th floor lobby, questioning who would dare to enter the main door of the Holy Kingdom's affiliated guild. Suddenly, Jin-Huk swung the door open, leaving the girls utterly shocked. Swiftly regaining their composure, they maintained their professionalism and warmly welcomed Jin-Huk to the White Swallow, inquiring about the purpose of his visit. Jin-Huk, employing his acting skills, broke into a broad smile and replied, raiding the tower alone has proven too challenging, so I'd like to join the guild. The girls were relieved to discover that an individual sought to join their guild. Yet they suddenly paused, sharing a common concern: the potential for significant empowerment if they recommended a newcomer to the guild. After careful consideration, they enthusiastically welcomed Jin-Huk, inquiring if he had a reefer or received a direct invitation. Jin-Huk, still playing his part, feigned ignorance and mentioned that he came due to the guild's substantial affiliation. The 2 young women exchanged triumphant glances, convinced that Jin-Huk was a novice unaware of their guild's intricacies. The blonde girl then requested Jin-Huk to demonstrate his abilities. In response, Jin-Huk asked them for a coin and effortlessly bent it using his fingers, astonishing the girls. He then claimed proficiency in basic magic and ignited a fire on his hand as if to demonstrate, leaving the 2 girls bewildered. They were astounded by Jin-Huk's array of talents and began whispering to each other, recognizing that his current skills were not the crux of the matter. They believed that by guiding him, Jin-Huk had the potential to become a tycoon. The blonde girl, adding a touch of jest, remarked on Jin-Huk's good looks, prompting her friend to question if he was truly her type. With a sly grin, Jin-Huk thought that he had bought enough time, anticipating something to unfold soon. However, a sudden noise interrupted their conversation, and the girls wondered about its origin. Without delay, a man rushed into the guild house expressing urgent concern about a rampaging spirit monster wreaking havoc in the village. He urged everyone who had reached the 50th floor to assemble immediately. Amidst this critical moment, the 2 girls requested Jin-Huk to wait in the guild as they resolved this emergency. As they exited and shut the door behind them, Jin-Huk donned his mask once more, declaring that it was time to revert to his menacing alter ego, Ghostface, standing there with his new drip. Back outside, chaos reigned as people fled for their lives. Climbers attempted to confront the supposed crazy spirit, only to discover that their attacks were utterly ineffectual. Unbeknownst to them, this so-called crazy spirit was, in fact, Vulcan, consumed by resentment over the mockery of his awkward appearance. Blushing with shame, Vulcan inwardly cursed Jin-Huk for subjecting the first spirit master to such humiliation, vowing never to forgive him. Meanwhile, Jin-Huk was engaged in physical altercations with individuals seemingly searching for something. Another person emerged from a nearby room, bewildered by the commotion, and inquired about the situation. Jin-Huk's response was swift as he grasped the man by the neck, hoisting him into the air. He noticed a plethora of books inside the room the man had come from and demanded information. Jin-Huk explained that given their guild's affiliation with the Holy Kingdom, he required a list of other guilds and their precise locations. The gasping man questioned Jin-Huk's wisdom in making enemies of 2 members of the 9 Star. Jin-Huk expressed gratitude for the man's concern, but warned that now was not the time to worry about others. Terrified, the man reluctantly pointed toward a desk inside the room he'd exited. Jin-Huk thanked him for not wasting his time, releasing his grip. As Jin-Huk perused the papers on the table, he discovered information about the Pellin siblings, realizing that the individuals before him were their pawns. He silently vowed to bring them all under his control, burning the papers as a symbolic gesture of his intent to dismantle them slowly. The scene shifted to Gold Lich, who was reviewing reports when an envelope slipped from the stack, catching his attention. Intrigued, he opened the letter, wondering why Puppet had sent a separate message alongside the reports. As he read the contents, a moment of eerie silence enveloped him, followed by a nervous, sweat-inducing realization. Gold Lich exclaimed, "Ghostface! How in the world do you know about this?" Due to Jin Huk's involvement in igniting the building, a massive fire suspected to be an act of arson engulfed the village. Unfortunately, all witnesses on the scene perished. Beck Halo, the guildmaster of the White Swallow, expressed suspicion about a prospective recruit. Beck inquired about the individual's appearance and attire from two young women. Strikingly, their descriptions of Jin Huk differed. The blonde girl depicted him as a handsome man with a prominent nose bridge, while her friend described him as unattractive with a short, stubby nose. They exchanged shocked glances, realizing Jin Huk might have employed hallucination magic. The narrative shifts to Jin Huk in a room where Vulcan emerged from a portal, and Jin Huk praised his performance with an arrogant grin. Jin Huk mentioned rumors about a fearsome ghost. Vulcan, frustrated, questioned if he was mocking him. He also inquired if Jin Huk had completed his mission without detection. Jin Huk confidently admitted to using effective hallucination magic, causing everyone to remember him differently. When Vulcan asked about the gathered information on other guilds, Jin Huk stated that having it in his mind sufficed. Suddenly, a knock at the door interrupted them. Vulcan asked if Jin Huk had requested room service, but Jin Huk denied it. He donned his mask and devised a plan. He'd open the door on the count of 3, and Vulcan would apprehend the visitor. Jin Huk counted 1, 2, 3, and Vulcan swiftly summoned chains to capture the knocker, revealing it was Hal Xiang. He informed Jin Huk that Puppet had sent him to convey that the Gold Lich had arrived at the 10th floor branch. Upon reaching the 10th floor, they encountered numerous knights. Jin Huk inquired about the Gold Lich's whereabouts, and the Gold Lich himself acknowledged Jin Huk's audacity and commended his courage for showing up. With a menacing demeanor, the Gold Lich warned Jin Huk of a steep price to pay, declaring that individuals who possessed knowledge of certain matters couldn't exist within the tower. As the Gold Lich departed, he ordered the knights to escort Jin Huk, barely clinging to life, to his room. Jin Huk's demeanor turned menacing as he challenged the knight leader, asking if he desired a fight. In response, the knight leader ordered his comrades to prepare for battle, but before they could react, Jin Huk delivered a powerful punch to the leader while chastising him for foolishly revealing their strategy. The other knights watched in shock as their captain was defeated. Without hesitation, Jin Huk swiftly incapacitated all the standing knights and then advanced towards the Gold Lich, wielding the knight's equipment. The Gold Lich, in a dramatic turn, caused the gold coins around him to levitate, almost resembling liquid. The coins transformed into projectiles and barraged Jin Huk relentlessly. Internally, Jin Huk recognized this power as golden power, where the Gold Lich converted gold into mana for his attacks. Jin Huk skillfully deflected the onslaught of coins and questioned if that was all the Gold Lich had to offer. However, the Gold Lich wasn't finished. He morphed the gold into sharp-pointed blades, warning Jin Huk that the majority of the gold in the branch could unleash a devastating wave. Even if it's the so-called ghost face, he will be critically injured. Just as an explosion occurred around Jin Huk, seemingly ending the confrontation, Jin Huk surprised the Gold Lich by revealing he wasn't defeated. He held a spear to the Gold Lich's neck, claiming victory in their verbal battle. Pushing away the spear, the Gold Lich arrogantly remarked that he could easily eliminate someone like Jin Huk if he wished. To the Gold Lich's shock, Jin Huk countered, stating that he couldn't be killed. Jin Huk emphasized that the Gold Lich hadn't inquired about his information source, and that they intended to capture him alive. Jin Huk offered to reveal his source, leading the Gold Lich to request his presence in a grand room. Jin Huk marveled at the opulence of the room, acknowledging the power of money. The Gold Lich then activated his power, creating sharp blades that sealed them off from the outside world. He demanded to know the person who had informed Jin Huk about his ownership of the auction.